Hi, this is Rich, Rich and D, and I've been going through the Essential 100 for the past little bit. And if you haven't done that already, I really encourage you to do so. It's really, really a powerful reading and really can help grow your relationship with Christ. This week we were actually looking in the book of John, talking about the death and resurrection of Christ. And to me, that's one of the most powerful sections of the Bible, just to show God's divinity and power. And the book of John's great for the showing God's divinity and his great power. So we start here in the Garden of Gethsemane. Just some highlights we're going to look at. In the Garden of Gethsemane is one of the places God actually shows his power, and it's in three simple words. You see, the guards show up with Judas with them, and it's kind of, if you think about it, it's kind of bold of Judas to show up there, to actually stand before Christ and knowing what he's about to do, but yet there he is. And he says, Christ says, "Who are you looking for?" And the guards reply, "We're looking for Jesus." And it's three simple words that God uses to show his power. He says, "I am he." But as he says that, he actually reveals a portion of his power and glory, and actually causes them to fall backwards with just a few words. I mean, how great is that, to have a God that can actually do that? And then he asks them again, "Who are you looking for?" But this time it's not who you're looking for, it's, "Do you really know who you're looking for?" Which they say, "Jesus of Nazareth." And he says, "Well, I am he. However, these people behind me, you leave them alone. If you're seeking me, here I am." This shows the protective nature of Christ, that he was there, he was compassionate, he loved his disciples, and he didn't want them involved in this. And Peter, wanting to protect Christ, pulls out a sword and attacks one of the guards, actually lopping off one of his ears, and is immediately rebuked by Christ, who says, "No, stop, we are not going to do this. You will not prevent me from doing my Father's will." And Peter, of course, does as his master says. Then Christ goes with the guards off to be questioned by the Pharisees, Annas and Caiaphas, all while their questions are really stupid, simple questions. They ask him, "So what are you teaching the people?" And Christ just replies, I teach in the public square, I teach in the synagogues. Why are you asking me what I teach? You hear what I teach. And they really can't find any fault with anything he's been doing, except that it just upsets them, and they're just not hearing what they want to hear. So they can't come up with a reason to stop him or to end his teachings. And the only way they can see to end it would be to kill him. And we see that later on in the passages. Now, the thing that's important during this time of him being questioned is also what happens with Peter, who's on the outside of the room. Three people come to him on three separate occasions and ask him, "Hey, aren't you that guy with Jesus?" And each of those three times, Peter denies Christ, says, No, I don't know the guy. I don't know who you're talking about. And this goes back to when Christ told him, "Peter, you're going to deny me three times." But Peter, it's like, "No, I'm the most faithful of the apostles. I would never do that." And yet here he does do that exact thing. So, having no grounds to hold him for execution, they take him to the Roman magistrate, Pilate. And Pilate's first question when they bring him up there is, "What is his charge?" And this is one of the first indications that this is kind of an underhanded deal, not really legal, not above the board, because they say, "How dare you ask us that? Of course we're charging him. We wouldn't have brought him to you if we didn't have charges." So Pilate's like, "Well, then you take care of it. Do it under your own judgments and your own laws." And they're like, "Well, we can't execute him." So he's like, "Well, what would warrant his execution?" So he starts, asking Christ why. They say you're a king. They say you're this or that. And he's like, "Are you a king?" And Christ is like, "Yes, I'm a king. However, my kingdom is not here. If it was here, then they would never have been able to arrest me. So it's not from around. I'm not from around here, so to speak." So Pilate really doesn't want to get mixed up in all this, but the problem is he's a politician, and we all know how politics go. And when Caesar isn't happy with you, he tends to make your life pretty bad. So if an uprising were to occur with the Jewish people, Caesar would hear about it, and that would just put Pilate in a bad position. So he comes up with this much better plan. "I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this thieving murderer, and I'm going to put Christ, I'm going to put them up here, and I'm going to let the people choose on which one to let go, because it's a tradition. I let one prisoner go each year. So he says, here you go. Here's this murdering, thieving liar, and here's Christ, who's done nothing wrong. And to his abject, I'm sure, fear, they say, let Barabbas go. And he's dumb. I'm sure he's dumbfounded, but he's now caught in his own little manipulative trap. So the next thing he does is he has to follow through with Roman law, so he sends Christ out to be flogged. And he gets flogged, and he gets beat by the soldiers. The soldiers actually create the crown of thorns to put on his head. And, nowadays we are like really taken back when we see soldiers on TV who are abusing prisoners. But back then it was commonplace, and it's just cruel. And it was just a very cruel system. So he brings him back, and I think at this point he's really hoping that, okay, if I show him in front of the public, then they'll just let him go. Everything's been done. But instead of saying, okay, I can let this guy go, they're like, no, crucify him, crucify him, crucify him. And once again, he's kind of caught up in his own little political intrigue. So he sends him to the crucifixion. Now he does get in one little small jab to the Jewish people by putting a sign on the top of his that says King of Kings, or King of Israel. And they're upset. They're like, no, he claims to be King of the Jews. Claims to be. And he's like, no, I've already written it, King of the Jews. That's just the way it's going to stay, so too bad. Now, while he's there, some things that happen, he's got his mother and his friend Mary, wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene, and John, the writer of the book of John. They're all there, and he actually asked John to take care of his mother after his death, which he does, as if it were his own mother. And then he asks for a drink, and he's like, because he's thirsty, and they lift up a sponge of wine to him. Now, this isn't to be confused with, in Matthew and Mark, they talk about the sponge full of vinegar, which is mixed with gall, and gall was a drug that actually dulled your senses and dulled your pain nerves. This was plain vinegar. Now, vinegar in this time was not vinegar as we know it. It was a sour, cheap wine commonly used by the Roman soldiers. So he does drink that, and after that he looks up and says, "It is finished," and he dies. Now, after that, we all know the story as Joseph of Arimathea takes his body, places it in the tomb, and just prior to that, we also we talked about, or you can read in the other books about the thieves that are there and how it was getting to be the Sabbath, and they didn't want them to be alive because it's kind of bad press to die on the Sabbath, so they would actually go through and break their legs. Well, they come to Christ to break his legs, but he's already dead, and so law still dictated they had to prove that he was dead, so they took a spear and they stabbed him in the side, and out came water and blood. Now, a lot of people try to put some supernatural spin to that, but there's actually a medical thing. Pericardial fluid is the fluid that surrounds your heart. It's a clear liquid, and if they had pierced his heart cavity, it would be, and his heart has ceased pumping, then the fluid would come out first and then blood afterwards. So it would be very easy to see blood and water coming out at the same time. So we all know the story. Like I said, he's taken to the empty tomb. There's a stone put in front of it. Mary Magdalene then comes down and tries to take care of her Savior's body, finds the tomb empty. She runs back, finds John and Peter, who run back and see that the tomb is empty. And off they go. Well, sometime later, Christ appears to all of the apostles and says, "Here I am." And all of them but Thomas. Thomas is the only one that wasn't there. So when they tell Thomas about it, he's like, "Yeah, right, whatever. I'll believe it when I see it," basically. He's like, "I want to see the scars in his hands, the scars in his feet, and the cut in his side. I'll believe it then." Well, sometime, shortly thereafter, Christ appears, and poof, here's the holes in my hands, the scars in my feet, and the cut in my side. There you go, Thomas. Have no more doubt. And I think Thomas really, because of this, has gotten a really bad rap, thinking that he is the doubting Thomas, because there's other sections in the Bible. I mean, it's not that many, but there is one section in particular when Christ is going to help Lazarus, and they're all afraid that they're going to be killed, and Thomas is the one that steps up and says, "You know what? Let us all go, that we may die with him." That doesn't sound like a doubting person to me. So maybe he had one moment of doubt, and maybe understandably so, but there you have it. So The thing that's really cool about this is, as Christ is seeing everyone here, he comes to Peter. Now remember, Peter just betrayed him, or not betrayed him, but was disloyal to him and denied him. He comes to Peter and he says, Peter, do you love me? Now the word he uses here, unfortunately the English language isn't really good at this, but the word they use here is the word agape. The word agape is an all-encompassing, perfect love. And Peter replies, yes, I love you, but he doesn't use the word agape. He uses the word phileo, which is that brotherly family love. And so Christ asks him again, do you love me? Agape love. And Peter replies, yes, I love you. Phileo love. So the third time Christ asks, do you, phileo, love me? And Peter says, yes, I phileo love you. And he says, then feed my sheep. And he's referring to those in the world who are seeking Christ that need that nourishment, that spiritual nourishment. But he's not just saying feed. He's saying to nurture, to protect, to defend, to guide, to direct. Give them everything. Do everything you can to bring them closer to me. And I think that's what we're all called to do. You know, some of the things we try to do is we try to develop fully devoted followers of Christ. And that's because Christ tells us that we are to go out there and that we are to direct, to guide, to love, not to judge, not to condemn, but to go out there and help them go to the cross, not away from the cross. So that's just some of the things I saw in this passage, and it was one of the most wonderful readings. It's one of the most profound readings we have in all of Scripture, and I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I have. So hope to see you guys soon. Hope you guys, if you're not already doing the Essential 100, that you'll start to do it on your own. And look forward to seeing you guys on the flip side.